don't really remember a lot about the journey. The journey, as far as I'm concerned, passed in 2 seconds, you know? It was probably half an hour, but it passed in 2 seconds. Don't really recall a lot of it. I just couldn't comprehend what had been done.
Did the Supergrass, Darren Nicholls, really tell the truth about what went on the evening of the 6th of December, 1995, and the murders of Patrick Tate, Anthony Tucker, and Craig Rolfe, who were all found murdered in a Range Rover in Redden, Essex? Right, it's now 21:48 and I've changed the tapes. This interview is being tape recorded. The time, as I say, is 21:48 on Tuesday, the 14th of the 5th, 96. And it's taking place at Chelmsford Police Station. I'm investigating the offence of possession of a controlled drug with intent to supply, and a record of this interview will be made and may be given in evidence if you are brought to trial. I'm Michael Joseph Brown, Detective Constable 744 of Headquarters Major Investigations, and my colleague is DC 1477 Chris Winstone of the Essex Police. And we're currently talking to Darren. Will you introduce yourself, please? Darren Nicholls of 15 Bailey Bridge Road, Braintree, Essex. Right. A notice explaining what will happen to the tapes will be provided. And in fact, you've already had a couple, Darren. Whilst in custody, you have the right to free and independent legal advice, either in person or on the telephone. If you wish to obtain this advice, let me or the other officer know. Do you understand? Yes, I do. This interview can be delayed to obtain such advice. Now, as you haven't got a legal representative here, would you explain why you don't wish to obtain legal advice? I don't feel I need one at this time. Fine, thank you. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you will later rely on in court. Anything you say may be given in evidence, and that is the caution. Do you understand that, Darren? Yes, you do. Fine. Now, we're continuing, as we say, just before the tape finished, that we began just to speak about the relationship with Pat Tate and his ex-wife, girlfriend, Sarah, and their relationship that Sarah had with Michael Steele and his girlfriend, Jackie. Would you like to pick up the story again from there? Pat had since been, obviously I missed out that Pat had obviously been re-released from prison totally and had no further charges offered, which worried Mick anyway, because they'd always said that Pat was a grass, and he'd been grassing people up, etc. And Pat had split up with Sarah, his girlfriend, or wife, I'm not sure which. Did you know her other name? No, I didn't. But if you said it, I might know it, but I don't. No, but it's what you... Just Sarah. Right, okay. And she has a little boy called... I can't even recollect what the little boy's name was, to be honest. Now, see, I did actually go to her house she moved to when Pat chucked her out. It had to be done in secret because Pat wasn't to know where she lived. Because when I was released from prison last time, I went on a training course to repair air conditioning and fridges. She had a broken fridge and Mick said could I have a look at it as she's moving house. She hasn't got a fridge. So I said, yeah, no problem. So I went round there. So where was this? It was somewhere in Basildon, Langdon, near Basildon. This was a house, was it? This is a rented house she'd rented. I didn't know the address. I wouldn't better take you back there or anything like that. It was dead in the middle of an estate sort of thing, and the fridge didn't work. And he said, well, come and have a look at the fridge, she said, if we're not going to borrow another one. This is Mick saying here by Sarah Never, sort her out another fridge. And because at the time, I'd been sidetracking a bit. But when I got out of prison, they'd given me a grant to do refrigeration. And I bought a lot of fridges, and I used to sell them as well in between my jobs. That was another little job to try and earn a bit of money. So I went there, and believe it or not, she plugged the fridge into the cooker socket, turned the cooker off, and the fridge went off. And it was so stupid, it was ridiculous. So I stayed round there about half an hour, and a couple of relatives come round. There was a bit of a Pat slagging session, you know. What he's done this, what he's done that. And now he's got a girlfriend. Now she's living in their old house and all the old stuff. I was just sitting there like thinking, oh, hurry up, I want to go home. Because like my wife hated me being associated with these people. I got in a bit of a run. Promised I wouldn't be associated with them. But let me finish the job because I started it, this and that. And so I wanted to get away from there. And they were happy to sit there and talk children. So Sarah had told Jackie and Mick that the people Pat had borrowed the money off, he decided he was big enough and brave enough not to pay him back. He didn't need to pay him back, Because when they came for him, for the money, he pointed them Mick's way and said the deal fucked up. It's all gone wrong. I haven't got your money, Mick Steele's got it. And blatantly said, Bomp. And this is the way I heard it, that Mick Steele's got your money. I haven't got your fucking money. So I think there was a lot of verbal between people. I don't know who they were. All I know is Pat was maintaining that he'd never received 1 pence, even though he'd received like a wad of money. Like I think the borrowed amount from these other like hooligans was 40,000. That was like a borrowed amount that he'd borrowed. Pat had borrowed and promised them whatever back. I don't know. You know what his financial events were. And he decided to knock them. He's a big lad. He can do what he likes. And did you take it? Sorry to interrupt you again. Did you take it that those were the two brothers again? I took it that these were the blokes. But like I said to you, I only heard this afterwards. Are you saying afterwards? After what? I only heard he'd borrowed the money off these two brothers after Pat was dead. Right, okay, yeah. That's why I said things in the wrong order. Nah, that's fine, you're okay. So I don't know. I think there were some conversations to the effect that this is what Sarah told Mick, that Pat had said, well, to these two blokes, the money he'd borrowed off, apparently was a pair of brothers, that if he doesn't pay you back, if he won't pay me, I'm going to kill him. We're back, to the same thing he said. I'll have him begging on his knees in front of you. He'll have to admit it. He said, then I'm going to fucking kill him in front of you. Look, Pat's shouting his mouth off. Like you haven't paid him. He's going to do you. So, here we go. The conversation's mixed up. No, go on. So, long story short, I don't see Mick very often. I'm at work. So I'm working at Heathrow. So I travel every morning early and come home every night. So I'm coming home one night. I can't even tell you which night or what day. He rings me up and says, I've got to see you. I've got to have a chat with you. I said, okay. He said, where are you? I said, I'm going to my local pub. I said, because I'm on my way in from work. Because I start leaving for work about 4 a.m. It's a long drive of a hard day's work. When I come home, I used to stop at this pub every night. The Cock at Rain. And he said, well, don't go in the pub. Come and have a drink with me. And I said, well, I've got these blokes with me I work with. I said, I'll have a drink with them, like I always do. Then I'll have a drink with you. He said, right, meet me at Mark's Tate at the motorbike shop at Parkinson's. It's not Parkinson's. It is Ron Parkinson's, isn't it? So I said, yeah, okay. Because in the meantime, I'd actually bought an old motorbike off Fran's sister. Prehistoric BSA thing. I know it wouldn't run because it needed a battery. So while I got up there fairly sharp, I was buying a battery before Mick turned up. So I got this battery, put it in my car or van. I don't even remember what I was driving. And then he said, come with me. I've got a few things to sort out. And I said, what? And he said, he's got to sort everything out with Pat. Because it's gone far enough. We're going to have a little talk about it. So we're going to go and have a little deal together. We've got a coke deal going down, he said. We're all going to earn plenty of money off it. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, what do you want me for? And he said, well, I was hoping is that you could drop me off and pick me up later. And I said, what, you going on your own? Oh, no. I'm parking my motor at the halfway house in London, he said. Jack will be with me. Jack Wilmes. And he said, you'll drive us there. Now, let's get this right. He said, I'm staying at the halfway house to have a drink with Pat to make friends. I said, right, what are we doing? He said, well, you'll take Jack to where we're going to have the deal, he said, because we're having a deal. And I said, well, where's that? And he said, Jack will show you, don't worry. So then Jack turns up. Jack turns up in a car that I sold to Mick, which was a Volkswagen Passat. Bought it off a bloke called Gary Stanley, living in Haverhill. And it was a right nice car. Do you know the index of it, Darren? I haven't got a clue. I mean, or what year it was. It was a B registration. B reg. Okay, yeah. I know this because I thought, cool, I didn't pay a lot for it. Quite a little bargain, sort of £250 car. So where did you see Jack? Well, anyway, when I'm talking to Mick in his Hilux, Jack has come along. That's at Mark's Tay. Yeah, but he hasn't stopped or got out or nothing like that. He's just said, right, we'll go now. Jack's with us. I said, what? He said, oh, he's behind us, in that car. So we're going along. And he said, what I'm going to do is, we're all going to drive to the halfway house. I said, yeah. He said, I'm staying there. I'm going to meet him. And I'm going to have a deal, he said. Then we're going to come over to you, where you are. And there'll be some other blokes there. We're going to sort the deal out. And then you'll drive back to us. He said, I don't want to do a deal in my car in case something goes wrong. He says, All you got to do is just drop us off and drive away, he said. Park up somewhere, then we'll ring you to come back. We'll get in the car and we'll go. He says, is that all right? And I said, well, we're going down at A127 now. Like, we've drove off in Mickey's Hilux. Mickey's Hilux. So we went up to the halfway house. He said, wait here until they turn up. So we know they've turned up. So they've not let us down. So then Jack's in the car with me. In what car? In this Passat. And Jack's got in this Passat. Jack had drove it down. Jack had said it's full of petrol. I said, yeah. Then Jack says, right, here they are. They'd pulled up in a Range Rover, right? And did you see who was in the Range Rover? I didn't see nothing. Just see a Range Rover. Jack said, here they are. Right, off you go. So I pulled out the halfway house. I think I had to go up the slip road, down the other side, back down the A127. Do you know roughly what time this would be, Darren? 18:30 max. It was dark. About 18:30. About 18:30. It was dark though, because there was snow on the ground as well. It was like, not snowed bad, but you know, it had snowed and it was a bit defrosted. And then Jack said, pull over here. I said, why? He said, well, I want to change the number plates on the car. I said, why? What's the matter? He said, no, I've got to change them. And he had some sticky back tape on and they wouldn't stick on because it was wet. And I said, well, they won't fucking stick on, silly. I said, because they're wet. And he said, oh, we won't bother then. So we left the plates in the car. So he said, right, drop me here. And like I stopped where he told me to stop. I dropped him off and he said, where was that? Oh God, the A1, you know, you get to it from the Rettendon Turnpike or something. It's a roundabout. Yeah, it's a roundabout with lots of roads off it with traffic lights on it. The Rettendon Turnpike. I think it's called this. The Rettendon Turnpike, yes. It is called the Turnpike. And then we took the Chelmsford Road, the A130. The A130, that's right. We took that road. It wasn't far up there, really. No more than sort of a mile, bottom of the hill. I dropped him on the left-hand side of the road. He got out of the car. He had a bag with him. I just thought it was money. I don't know. What sort of bag was it, Darren? I can't honestly remember because he was wearing overalls. I remember he was wearing overalls. I remember that. Do you know what colour the overalls were? Dark colour. Dark colour. It's just not in my mind. Was it like a small bag, you know, like an everyday bag? You know, like a toiletry bag or a rucksack? No. It was more of like a carpenter's green bag, that sort of thing. It was quite a normal one. I thought, not the average bag. And he had other things in his arms, like a coat. He had like hands full of bits. Nothing particular, you know. I thought, well, it's cold out there, you know. Dropped him off. And he said, you be back here when we phone you. You come back here, pull up, we'll jump in, off we go. Who do you mean by we? Mick was coming to the deal, but unlike the others, you know, in the Range Rover. Yeah. So I said, yeah, great, all right, fine. How long will you be? He said, oh no, as soon as they tell it, we'll be 5 minutes. He said the others will be waiting. Like, meaning there's some other people there already. So I said, okay. I only went sort of down the road to a pub, turned round, drove back. And my phone didn't have a signal. So I thought, oh fuck, it can't ring me. So I've drove back down towards the Rettendon Turnpike. Then there's a few houses, like not far from where I dropped him off. Then there's this left turn that goes up a hill like, with a little row of houses each side, like council houses. So I've gone up there, turned around and come back down. So I've come back down and stopped. And my phone's got a signal. And I literally pulled up and it rang. And he said, all right, Darren, come and pick us up. I said, that was quick, innit? So I've gone down there and I've seen him and he's gone. So I've turned around in this little lane like. He said, right, turn your lights off, spin it round. So I've done that, pull back up. Just to stop you there, Darren, who got into the car with you? Mick Steele and Jack Wilmes. Right. Well, first of all, Jack Wilmes got in the car. Is it a 2-door or a 4-door car? 4-door Passat. Jack Wilmes got in the back of the car. I said, where's Mick? Oh, he's dropped something. I said, okay. Mick's got in the front of the car. I didn't see what he was holding, but he was. And he said, right, get going, meaning the A130, towards Chelmsford, not back towards the Rettendon Turnpike. When you come out this lane, turn right. So I'm driving down there, and they went, phew, that's good. And then he just started chatting. They said, those because they're out of their hair for good now. Who said that? Mick. Jack. Mick. Jack. The pair of them, basically. They were chatting away, and I said, did Wilmes still have the bag with him? Yeah, he had the bag and all sorts. They were taking bits off. And then I noticed Mick had bits of barrels of a sawn-off side-by-side, you know? Side-by-side shotgun. He said, done them, done all three of the Gotta got them all out of my fucking hair now. I kept going and we got to the traffic lights. There was a swimming pool centre on the right. Yeah, I know. Went down that road for miles, as if the road didn't end. Sorry, which way have you turned? Right. Is that at the end of the road? At the end of the road, I think. And we've done a little right up a road. And there's a pub with a fucking great car park. Mick said, pull in the pub. There seemed to be a lot of activity. A lot of people seemed. Must be near a station or something. I reckon because lots of people seem to be using it as a bit of a car park, then wandering off, not going into the pub. He says, right, pull up here. Right, Jack will take your Passat, you jump in with me. So I went, all right, then I'm coming back. He said, are you all right, Darren? Everything okay? Well, what can you say? That's not exactly something you give an answer to. Hang on, I'll just stop you there. So you stopped at the pub car park? He told me to get out. Mickey's Hilux was there, was it? His Hilux was there, yeah. From what I gathered, what had happened was that he'd made them follow him up to this pub, yeah? And the idea was to give us more time to get to the other sites, like Jack could go and do what he had to do, not knowing how it was, hiding in the bushes with a gun. Just to stop you there for a moment, Darren. Do you know where Darren's speaking about, Chris? Yeah, I do. It's a public house on the junction of London Road, Rayleigh, and I'm not sure what the other road is. It's a side road. You go up a side road, and there's quite a huge pub. And you say it's near the railway station, if you're coming down the Rayleigh High Street. What is the town? I've understood we've gone towards Chelmsford, Darren. Yeah, but then we get to the traffic lights. It's the Rayleigh traffic lights at Rayleigh. It's the Rayleigh traffic lights. Turn right at the lights. I understood. Sorry, just for clarification. I thought that when you said you'd come out that turning, you turned right towards Chelmsford. Yeah, that's right. And not left towards the Rettendon Turnpike. No, that's right. Right towards Chelmsford. You come up there. Because I go that route to work. Oh, I beg your pardon. That's absolutely right. We just wanted to clarify, Darren, as you were coming from the Rettendon Turnpike when you was with Worms in the car. You're right. I was thinking where I went. Yeah, you're right. It is left. Yeah. So when you picked them up and you went towards the Rettendon Turnpike... Sorry, yeah, you're right. It was left. And it's straight across the traffic lights where the swimming pool centre is. Anyway, so we pulls in there and he says, right, go back to the Hilux. Jack and he had a few seconds words together. Then Jack drove off. He said, Jack's going to leave that motor. He took his overalls off and it was Wellington boots he was wearing. I think it was just overalls and Wellington boots. I don't know if they had gloves on. I think I noticed Jack had some surgical gloves on, you know? Yeah, I think he had some surgical gloves because I didn't get to look in the car because I was only driving. But I think Jack had got a bit of blood over him, like a fairish amount, if you know what I mean. What are you talking on? Speckles like. Specks of blood. Yeah. On him, when they came back to... I sort of glanced, but I didn't really... He was wearing gloves. Wearing gloves, yeah. And it wasn't until it was about half a mile up the road that I realised, like I said to you, that they shot him. When you were told by Mickey that you were going to go with him and Jack was going to get rid of the car. Yeah. The gun that you'd seen. I didn't actually see a gun. I only see a bit. Well, the barrel protruding from the bag then. Yeah, I see a bit that had apparently, when he fired, the gun had fell apart and a bit had fell on the floor and they'd finished like shooting them and they could find this fucking bit. And Jack had phoned me and Mick was still with a torch hunting around trying to find this piece of the gun and he found it because then I said, where's Mick? He said, oh, it won't be a second. And he come wandering up, you know? So at the time then, you left Worms in the Passat and went over to Mickey's car. What had happened to what you believed was the barrel of the gun then? Everything was in the Passat. Everything was in the Passat. Everything was in the Passat. And where did Mickey get changed? He literally stood next to his Hilux and it was snowy. He took off his Wellington boots and then his overalls, I think. It didn't click because I opened the doors. I just sat in there and I thought, fucking hell. I really, that's when I lost it a bit and thought, what's happening in here? Fucking hell, I can't believe. I think he undid his overalls and pushed them down to below his wellies and stepped out of his welly and put a shoe on and stepped out of another welly and put a shoe on. And the whole lot got screwed up when in the back of I'm not sure if he put it in the back of his Hilux or in the back of the Passat. Because I literally And how far was the Passat from the Hilux roughly? Parked, you know, next to each other. It just pulled in, but I was in the passenger seat. And the Passat would have been the other side, you know? What I mean, like the driver's side. And I was sitting there like, well, it's difficult to think how I felt. But staring forwards, really not thinking. But I know I remember seeing him because I was freezing cold. I really was cold. And I was thinking, phew. And he took them off. He took the overalls down. And, you know, over the wellies. And then sort of like pushing his jeans down over the top of the boots. And took them off and slipped his shoes on. And then I don't know what he did with the overalls and wellies. Didn't know then what he did with them. And then we went. Tell me, you say that you did not know what happened later. Is that what you're saying? What, at a later date? I remember him saying that Jack had something like Jack had either melted down the guns or ground them up to small pieces, and then thrown them in the sea, basically. And the car had got rid of, but all the clothing they'd been wearing had been burnt back at Mick's. Because Mick still had the remains of this bonfire. It had gone out, but there was this big heap. And he says all the wellies and overalls had been burnt. Like he's telling me this at a later date. But then when we were coming back in the car, when we were coming back in the Hilux, he was telling me how cold-hearted Jack is. He said, I didn't really get time to shoot him. He said because Jack had some sort of pump action, like it took quite a few cartridges. He said by the time I stepped out of the car, and Jack had given me this little gun, Jack had already leant in the car and shot all three of them. And I said, oh. And he said, I saw one of them twitch, so I put both barrels to their head and pulled the trigger. Like I went, oh. And then he said, I think he said that Jack he had reloaded and shot Tatey anyway, even though I think by the sounds of it, he was well and truly dead. And then he said, I think Jack reloaded and went round behind each of them and shot them in the back of the head as well. This is like, you know, because this is Mick talking, like on the way back. And I'm just sitting there thinking, now, I don't ever want to upset these two. And he dropped me back off at my motor. And then I was just on the way home. I rang up my mate and said, are you coming for a beer? And he said, no, I'm staying in. I said, no, come for a beer. I've got to have a beer. I said, come for a beer with me, please. He said, all right. Then I meet you in the pub. So I stopped in the pub, drank a few beers. And then he said, are you all right? I said, I'm just having a bad day. He said, are you sure? I said, oh, I'm just having the worst day of my life. I said, everything's going wrong. He said, what's wrong? And obviously I didn't say anything. I was fucking double shocked about it. And then the next day, Mick says, I think it was the next day, Mick, well, I don't know how long after, because I don't even want to talk to the bloke. And the next time I spoke to him, he said, that's what happens to people. That me off. He said, that'll teach you and all of his mates. And then they were laughing a while later. Who's they? Him and Jack. Because there's a bloke I was in prison that I couldn't get on with, name of Ian Spindler. He was like, oh, I can't get on with that bloke. He talks about posh things. He thinks he's far better than the rest of the world, and especially me. And like he thought he was a really big man, weight trained with Pat Tate. And like he was in the gym one day, made a little bit of a row, and basically I hit him. And like we split up, they sent him back to the unit. When I came back to the unit, we had a bit of a punch up. He lost. I beat him, and it was witnessed by a prison officer. So they got rid of Spindler, because Spindler was the blue-eyed boy. He was ex-Navy. Half the officers, some were like Matlow, and all this sort of thing, they were all like Spindler's blue-eyed boy, you know? I don't know what rank he got, but our irrelevance, I didn't get on with him. They were saying it's a shame, because when I was in the Range Rover, he said, oh, if we'd have waited 5 more minutes, Ian would have come with us, meaning Ian Spindler, you know? But apparently he got some sort of rank anyway. And he went, and afterwards, because Mick said to me, that would have been nice, Dar. He said, you've never liked him. We would have shot him for you and all. I said, yeah, lovely like. And then the subject dropped. End of, really. It literally sounds mad. I literally forgot it had happened. And the next day, I'd gone home. Got up at 4 a.m, gone to work, did my day's work, come home, stayed in a pub. Like the topic of conversations in the pub, it was announced on the radio about the shooting. Then everyone's talking about it. And then I thought, fucking hell. So I just drank my beer and said, let's go home. I don't want to drink tonight. And that was it really for then. Then no contact with Mick. And like, never finished his house. I've had an excuse not to go round there. And then he starts ringing me up again to pop round and that. And then he had a load of drugs a little while ago off someone called Russell from Southend. someone called Russell. He was importing some drugs for someone called Russell. And same thing. Have you got a passport, Dal? I said, no, I haven't got a passport. He says, well, you should fucking get one. And I said, well, I don't want one. I said, I can't be involved. He said, why not? It's good money. I said, no offence, but what happened? After it happened in December, I didn't want to be involved. I said, because I didn't want to fall out with you. No, it won't happen to you. No, you're sweet. You're lovely, Dad. You're all right. No, I said. Well, I haven't got a passport and I'm not getting one. Well, you can find out exactly when it was. I'll tell you why. Because he said, do me a favour and rent me a car. I said, why? He said, I've got to go down and meet someone at Portsmouth or something like that. He said, they're doing it for me. An African, a white South African, something like that, yeah. Don't know the geezer's name, nothing. He said, rent me a car. I said, all right then. He gave me the money. He said, any car you want. He said, look, ring Budget. So I rang Budget and I said, can I rent a car, please? And they said, yeah, certainly. I went down there, I rented a brand new white Mondeo, brand new N-Reg Mondeo, 16 diesel turbo with a boot, not an estate car. This was in Chelmsford. And he said, right, take my Hilux around your house and I'll see you later, he said. I only want it for now. I'll come back in 7 hours' time and you can have the Mondeo for the week, for the inconvenience. I said, all right. And then I thought, blimey, this is the first time he hasn't done anything to me. It's like stitching me up a bit. So he came back 7 hours later and I said, where's the Mondeo? Well, I spoke to this bloke. I had to slip across to Ostend, he said. I left it with someone. I said, what'd you do that for? He said, well, they needed it. Then I found out that he'd actually been over there to meet someone I don't know. Russell. You might know his later name. Anyway, someone called Russell has arranged people that drive drugs all the way from Spain, all up to Ostend. And Peter. I mean, have you got Peter? I mean, you have got Peter. You must have Peter, yeah? No doubt you got the rest of them. Peter goes over there for the drugs off these people. Don't know who they are, but I know one of them's a white South African or a South African or something like that. Probably white South African. But he's prejudiced against black people. So I don't think he'd give a black person a job. So he said, I left my car with them, he said. None of them wanted to stay with the drugs in the car, he said. So I left your Mondeo. I went, how could you do that, I said. Left the Mondeo registered to me. That'd be okay. I said, oh, what's that then? He said, don't worry, he said. I'm going to go home, he said, get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow, early evening, I'm going to stick the boat in over there. I'm going to pick up the drugs. I'm going to come back. This is Mick telling me. He said, then this bloke will be straight back and you'll have the Mondeo like I said, I don't know what day. I rented the Mondeo on a Friday. I remember that because it was a Friday. And I shot, I think, about an hour later. Mick came back and woke me up at 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. So he'd gone like, say, 12 hours. He'd come back with Jack. So I don't know how Jack got involved in this anyway. Jack? Worms. Like as I say, he said, you got my Hilux keys? I said, yeah. I had the Mondeo conversation. He said, no, it'd be back with you Saturday morning, he said. He said, you'll have it tomorrow afternoon. So I said, are you sure? I mean, what can I say to him? To be honest, I'm petrified of the geezer. So we went, no, you'll have it. So Sunday afternoon comes. He said, I've got your Mondeo. Do you want it? I think it was Sunday afternoon. Might have been Monday. I've got your Mondeo here. Come and pick it up. I goes and picks it up. There's quite a few scratches on it. Like it's brand new. And people, when they vetted the car, said, look, not a scratch. If you agree, sign. If it gets a fucking scratch, we're going to charge you 1.5 for a scratch deposit. So I said, there's scratches on it. As it happens, they were black marks. And I polished them off. And I took it back. He said, oh, by the way, if the police come round and anything. I said, yeah. He said, well, it won't be the police. Probably customs, he said. Tell them the car was stolen. Why? He said, well, the bloke driving it back got pulled. They completely searched and stripped the car to the ground. Gave it a proper complete strip, he said. Twice, actually. Kept it there for 4 hours, he said. And when they said who owns the car, he said the silly in South African said, I don't know. And I told Peter your name. I said, all you've got to do is say you borrowed it off Darren Nicholls. He was a bit drunk at the pub, lent me the keys. But the bloke couldn't remember your name, Dar. He said, so they might come round because they got to check with the budget. And budget said, yeah, Mr. Nicholls rented it. And the bloke went, oh yeah, that's right, Mr. Nicholls. And he said, so you know, like. And it was empty of diesel. But he gave me 30 quid. Because when I got the car, it was also full up to the brim. So you take it back full up to the brim. Then he went, hi-ho sort of thing. And that was, no police or customs came round. Obviously, you probably knew about the car. I took it back a day early because if they phoned up, Budget knows, like, I've lent a car to someone that I shouldn't have done. And they might, have a go at me. And I didn't really want to be had a go at. So I took it back the night before and just put the keys through the door with a letter saying, it sounds silly, but I can't even face a fucking Budget rent-a-car if they ask me a question about it. So I wouldn't know what to say to him. So I took it back early. And that was, whenever that was. And then he had, go on. He had some drugs. And I had a bit off him. He sort of like went, go on, Dal. So I took a bit. I took a little bit. And again, the same mate of mine took it. And Wolfie was involved here. Because he knew all about it. He told me he'd been informed by one of his informers. I took the story up here again. No, you're right, mate. I've sort of gone forward probably a month, but forgot to say something. So basically, he said to me, because then Darren, if I could just say at this moment, we've been talking for nearly an hour and a half. And I was going to say, I don't know how you feel, but it's 10:30 now. And we've sort of arrived at a convenient sort of time, if you like, for tonight. Do perhaps call it a day? Because it's obvious it's been quite a strain on you. Right, I've missed loads of things out. Well, it'll also give you time to gather your thoughts. The thing is, a lot of the thoughts I don't want to remember. Well, I appreciate that. But there are probably a lot of things that are going to come to your mind now that we started talking about it. There is things there's things I've already forgot about. All right, well, hang on. Shall we call it for a day for now? If you reflect on what you've said so far, we can go back over it like a jog tomorrow to bring you back up to speed with what we've got here. Then we'll carry on filling in the details and take it from here because it's a convenient point to stop at this point where you've taken the car back to Budgets, I think. And then we'll carry on from there. I've missed out quite a few bits. We've already said to you, Darren, this is going to be a longer rather than shorter operation. Yeah, I've just thought of different things I've been talking about Mick when I've missed out other people around me, if you know what I mean. Like a few burglars. Yeah, I know. I was going to ask you about that. Do you want a pencil and paper to make some jotter notes for yourself tonight? No, I'll just go through it. And it comes like you say. I didn't realise how long I've been talking for. Nearly an hour and a half, Darren. So I think it's convenient. Feels like I've been talking about 5 minutes. Yeah, well, you've got a lot that you obviously want to get out of yourself. And it's obviously trauma. We'll call it a day for tonight, Darren. Now 22:30 on Tuesday the 14th of the 5th, 96. This interview is now being concluded. Okay.